Do you hear the dirt shifting beneath your feet? The shadows stretching across the cemetery, watching you? What if the dead could call your name, and you answered? Would you dare to step closer into the fog and the whispers? One grave, one misstep, and they'll dig for you. Are you ready to face what waits beneath the soil? It started with the sound of dirt hitting wood, a dull, hollow thud. I'd heard it 1,000 times, but that night, God help my, it sounded different. I've been a gravedigger for 27 years. People think it's a lonely job, a quiet one. They don't know the truth. Cemeteries are never quiet. The dead don't rest. They whisper, they sigh. Sometimes they even scratch. That night a fog had rolled in so thick it pressed against my face like wet cloth. My lantern barely cut through it. The last funeral of the day had ended hours ago, but I stayed behind to fill the last grave. A young woman, no family. Died in a car wreck, closed casket. Her name was Eliza Moore. I remember the priest left early, said he felt, watched. I laughed at him. Then the crows came back. Dozens. Sitting on the crosses, not cawing, just staring. The first shovelful of dirt fell heavy, then another, and then something shifted in the coffin. I froze. The ground trembled, just a little, like something underneath was trying to move. I leaned close, listened. A faint knock once, then again. My breath turned to frost. The fog thickened. Hello, I whispered. Silence. I told myself it was gas escaping. Happens sometimes, nothing unnatural about it. But my gut twisted. My heart kicked. I dropped another shovelful. The knock came again, louder. Then I heard it. A woman's voice, muffled, pleading, please, let me out. I stumbled back, nearly dropping the lantern. It couldn't be. She was dead, cold for 2 days before we put her in the ground. I looked around. Fog, graves, darkness. No one there. Only the crows. Please, the voice begged again. It's so dark. My shovel hit the dirt. I ran, but I didn't get far, because something was standing by the gate. He wore a black suit, slick with rain, a funeral director, I thought. But his skin, it wasn't right. Too pale, almost gray, and his eyes no reflection, just black pits. You can't leave her, he said. His voice was like a coffin lid creaking open. Who are you? I stammered. She isn't done yet. He stepped closer. The fog seemed to crawl around him, wrapping him like smoke. I could smell the rot, wet earth, old blood. I backed away. I don't know what you're talking about. He tilted his head. Don't you remember? You buried her before. My stomach dropped. Before. He pointed at the grave. The name on the stone wasn't Eliza Moore anymore. It was mine. I stumbled back. My lantern fell, shattering. The light went out. Darkness swallowed everything. And then I heard digging. Fast, desperate, coming from inside the grave, and another voice whispering my name. Not Eliza's, my own voice, calling from beneath the soil. I ran, didn't care where. Just ran through the fog, through the rows of stones. The ground felt soft, like it wanted to pull me down. I tripped, fell face first into the mud. When I looked up, I was surrounded. Dozens of figures standing between the graves, their faces pale, eyes black, some missing jaws, others half buried in the dirt, still moving. The dead, everyone I'd ever buried. Elisa isn't alone, one of them croaked. She brought you back, I screamed. They came closer, their feet dragging, the sound wet sucking mud and cracking joints. I crawled backward, my hands sinking into something cold. Fingers, a hand. It grabbed me, pulled. The ground opened like a mouth. I clawed at the earth, my nails tearing. Something pulled harder, whispering all around me now. My name, over and over. I woke up at dawn, lying beside the grave, covered in mud, my shovel half buried beside me. The coffin had been dug up, open, empty. The police came. They said I must have had a breakdown, that I'd imagined it. But I saw the handprints inside the lid, fresh ones, from the inside. I quit that night, packed up, left town. But no matter where I go, the sound follows me. That hollow, heavy thud of dirt hitting wood. It comes from under the floor sometimes, from my closet, from my bed. And at night, when I close my eyes, I see her, Eliza, pale, mud in her hair. Smiling, she whispers, "Your turn." Then I hear the knocking. It's coming from inside the walls now. The other gravediggers tell stories too, about coffins that move, about voices in the fog. But none of them talk about the shadows that walk during funerals, the ones that stand too close behind the mourners, the ones no one else seems to see. Sometimes, at a service, you'll see someone crying alone after everyone's gone. A woman in black, maybe her veil too long to still. Don't go near her, don't speak to her, because if you do, she'll look up and she'll have your face. You'll feel the world tilt. You'll blink, and suddenly you're the one in the box. You'll feel the cold hands closing the lid, the dirt raining down. And somewhere above you, someone's whispering your name. That's the thing about graveyards. They're not full of the dead. They're full of promises, broken ones. So if you ever hear knocking from under the soil, don't answer, don't dig, and for the love of God, don't look back. Because if you do, you'll see them standing right behind you, smiling, waiting for your turn. The rain had stopped hours ago, but the ground still bled mud. That's what I remember most. The smell, wet earth, rust, decay. It seeps into your lungs when you dig graves long enough. My name's Jonah Pike. I've buried over 200 bodies. I used to joke that the dead kept me company. Now I know they were listening. It started last winter, a funeral like any other, closed casket, a man in his 30s, named Daniel Rourke. They said suicide, no family but a sister. She stood at the grave, shaking, whispering. He wasn't supposed to come back. No one else heard her, but I did. That night I stayed late. Needed to fill in a few graves before the frost came. Fog rolled in, heavy cold, the kind that doesn't move, it watches. I dug, dirt thudding, lantern flickering, and then I heard breathing. Not mine, not human. It came from the hole, slow, wet, dragging breaths. I leaned over the edge. Hello. Something moved down there. A hand, pale, broken nails clawing at the wood. I jumped back. The lantern fell, glass shattered. Darkness swallowed me whole. Then came the voice, hoarse, gurgling. Jonah, help me. I couldn't breathe. The voice Daniel's. I'd seen his face in the obituary photo, but he'd been dead 3 days. Jonah, it said again, you left me here. The dirt beneath my boots started to sink. The grave widened, swallowing the shovel whole, and from below something pulled hard, hands cold as stone, strong as rope wrapped around my ankle. I kicked free, crawling backward, mud sucking at my legs, and then silence, until the coffin snapped open, not from the hinges, from the inside, the sound splintering wood, muffled screaming, and then his head rose through the dirt. Daniel's face was twisted, lips split, eyes wide and glassy. But when his mouth opened, it wasn't his voice anymore. It was mine. Jonah Pike, your turn. I ran, didn't stop till I reached the caretaker's shack, locked the door, sat in the dark, shaking, listening. At first I thought it was wind scratching the windows. Then I realized it was fingernails, dozens of them, scraping, dragging, whispering my name in voices that didn't match. Old ones, women, children, every person I'd buried. They were all whispering the same thing. Dig us up. I pressed my hands over my ears, but I could still hear them, inside my head, under my skin. When the morning came, I went back to the grave. Had to see, had to prove it wasn't real. The ground was perfect, smooth, undisturbed, except for one thing. There were footprints on top of the grave, bare deep, leading straight to my shack. That night, I dreamed of Daniel. He was sitting in the coffin, smiling, holding a lantern just like mine. Behind him stood all the others. Their eyes glowed faintly red in the dark. Every digger takes a turn, Daniel said. You open the ground long enough, the ground opens you. I woke up screaming. The lantern by my bed was lit and my boots were covered in mud. I tried to quit the next day. Told the undertaker I couldn't do it anymore. He just stared at me, then smiled. You think you can walk away, Jonah, he said. You're one of them now. His eyes, they weren't eyes. Just black holes, deep and endless. I left that night, didn't pack, didn't look back. But the further I drove, the louder the whispers got. They weren't behind me anymore. They were inside the car. I looked in the rearview mirror. For a second, I saw them all sitting in the back seat. Every face I'd buried. Every hand I'd covered in dirt. And Daniel right in the middle, grinning. Nowhere left to run. Jonah, the road disappeared. The car spun. The world went black. When I opened my eyes, I was standing in the cemetery again. Only this time, the graves were open. All of them, empty coffins, the fog crawling like veins through the soil. Something was whispering in the dark, chanting now, low, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. Then I realized it was a heartbeat, mine. The graves began to fill themselves in, not with dirt, with shadows, with arms, with faces. They moved like a wave, crawling toward me, dragging themselves through the mud. Hundreds of them, eyes gone, mouths open. I turned to run and tripped over something soft, a coffin, freshly dug, my name carved into the lid. I screamed until my throat broke, but no sound came out. The shadows surrounded me. Cold fingers clawed my arms, and Daniel leaned close. You dug for us. We dig for you. Then the ground gave way. I fell through earth, through rot, through bones that whispered and laughed. I landed in a coffin. My coffin, The lid slammed shut. Dirt rained down. Thud, thud, thud. And through the soil I heard it again, that slow wet breathing, but this time, it was me. Every night since, I hear the shovels, sometimes outside the window, sometimes under the bed, sometimes inside the walls, and I know what's coming. They're digging again, not to get out, to pull me back in. I've spent my life among the dead. My hands know the shape of coffins better than beds. I've smelled the decay, the earth, the cold sweat of someone already gone. They think it's just dirt, they think it's silent, but cemeteries scream, and if you listen, it's too late to stop. It began one fog-choked night. I was finishing the last grave before frost would turn the soil to stone. A man named Henry Thorne. No family, just a ledger of debts and a life nobody mourned. The funeral had ended hours ago. Candles burned out. Only the lantern in my hand and the fog pressing against my chest. I dug 1, 2, 3 shovelfuls. My boots sank into mud like it was alive. And then, the whispering started. At first I told myself it was the wind. Soft, sibilant voices that seemed to come from the ground itself. But soon I realized, it was speaking my name. Jonah. I froze. Shovel midair. I was alone, or I thought I was. A shadow flickered at the edge of the lantern's light. A woman in black, veil soaked in fog, her hands clasped as if in prayer. Only her eyes. They weren't eyes, just dark hollows. Empty. You shouldn't be here, she said, voice low, like dirt sliding over bone. I'm just finishing the grave, I said, shaking. You bury them, but they don't stay buried. The ground trembled, the shovel slipped, dirt slid into the coffin, and then something moved beneath. A hand burst through the soil, clawing, scraping, reaching. Not Henry's hand, mine. At least it looked like mine, pale and twisted, covered in mud. I stumbled back, tripping over the edge of another grave. Lantern clattered to the ground. Its light flickered, casting shadows that didn't match their owners. The hand moved faster, scratched faster, and the whispers multiplied. Then came the smell. Not mud, not decay. Something worse. Coppery, sharp, wet, blood. Jonah. The voice came again. Not one voice, but dozens, layered together. You dug for us. Now it's our turn. I ran through the fog, through the crooked stones, through the rows of graves. Behind me, laughter, I think impossible. I stumbled into the chapel. Doors locked themselves. Windows blackened, as if the night had crawled inside. Candles lit on their own. Shadows stretched across the walls, twisting into shapes, faces of people I had buried. Mouths open in silent screams, eyes bleeding darkness. And then I saw him, the funeral director, not alive, not dead, something in between. Skin, gray, eyes, bottomless voids, hands covered in soil. You've been digging in the wrong place, Jonah, he said. The floor beneath him cracked, oozing mud. They remember everything. The chapel shook. The dead began to rise. From floorboards, from the dirt under the building, coffins splintered, skeletons leaned, cracked joints snapping. They weren't moving toward me, they were inside me, my chest, my head, my thoughts. I could hear every whisper, every scream, every plea from the graves I'd dug. I ran again, out the back door, fog clanging like hands, and the cemetery had changed. Graves were gone, tombstones twisted into faces, screaming silently, trees bent low, roots writhing. The sky was black as wet earth, and red mist slithered over the ground. I heard the digging again, faster this time, above and below, everywhere. I looked down. I was standing on a coffin, and inside, a lantern flickered, and inside the lantern my eyes stared back at me. I screamed. The air thickened. The voices merged into a chorus of rage and hunger. Join us, Jonah. Join us. Then I fell, through soil, through roots, through hands that pulled me down into darkness. My own coffin, waiting, dirt fell like rain, fingers scraping the lid. And in the silence that followed, I realized I had been digging my own grave all along. Now every night I hear the shovels, from under the floor, behind the walls, under my bed, whispering, always whispering. And I know, if I sleep, they will come, and when they do, they will bury me properly. But it won't be the end, because cemeteries don't just hold the dead, they hold the living, the guilty, the curious. And once you hear the whispering, they never stop digging for you. I thought I knew death, I thought I understood it. But cemeteries have secrets that no priest, no mourner, no skeptic will ever tell you. And I learned them the hard way. I was working a late-night burial during a thunderstorm. The coffin was for a child 7 years old, named Lucy Mayhew, the kind of death that twists something inside you, something that never heals. Her mother stayed silent, hands clenched over the edge of the grave, tears mixing with rain. The priest left early, mumbling that it felt wrong, that the storm wasn't natural. I didn't care, I just dug. The soil was thick, black, and cold. The lightning struck near the edge of the cemetery, flashing the silhouettes of twisted trees and crooked tombstones. And that's when I heard it a giggle, a child's laugh. Eyes soft, curling around my ears like smoke. I froze. The shovel fell. Mud splashed my boots. "Lucy," I whispered. Silence. Then the giggle again. Louder. Closer. I turned. The grave, empty, except the lantern's light revealed footprints, tiny bare leading from the casket toward the edge of the cemetery. They were wet, glowing faintly in the lightning's flash. I ran, past tombstones, past ancient oaks that seemed to reach for me, past graves that were no longer empty. Something moved in each one, hands pale, clawing at the soil, faces, twisted, screaming, unseen mouths forming my name. I made it to the chapel, locked. I pounded on the doors. Nothing. The giggling followed me inside. Every pew, every aisle was occupied. Figures in black, their faces blurred, their heads tilted at impossible angles. And in the center, Lucy, small, pale, her eyes too dark, too deep. "Dig," she said. Her voice was not a child's anymore. It was hollow, metallic, like something from below the earth. Then the walls began to bleed, black mud seeping from the wood. Coffins broke open inside the walls. Skeletons leaned out, their jawless mouths opening and closing, whispering my name. I tried to run, but the floor shifted beneath me. The chapel became a pit. I fell into mud, into soil, into cold, wet hands that pulled me down. Something whispered in my ear, hundreds of whispers, layered and overlapping. "You dig for us. Now we dig for you." Lightning flashed. For a moment I saw all the graves I'd ever dug, open, empty. From each rose, a figure, pale and wet, reaching toward me. Some familiar, some not. I realized I'd never buried some of these people. Some I didn't even know. Yet they were here, all around me. I screamed. The soil swallowed me. Hands, dirt, fingers, mud, everything closing in. Then came the voice, loud, everywhere, inside my head. "Jonah Pike, you shouldn't have dug." I woke in the rain, lying atop Lucy's grave. Coffin gone. The fog, thick, heavy, alive. And in the earth beneath me, I felt it something moving, digging, faster, closer. I ran from that cemetery. I quit the job. I left town, but the whispers followed. Every night, from under the floorboards, from the walls, from beneath my bed. A scratching, a giggle, a voice calling my name. I can't sleep. I can't hide. And I know, one night the earth will come for me. The graves will open. The dead will rise. And Lucy, small, pale, dark-eyed Lucy, will stand at the center, smiling, lantern in hand, waiting for me to dig my own grave. And when I fall in, I know I will never leave. The night was colder than usual, and the fog rolled in thick, curling around the tombstones like fingers. I had been digging graves for over a decade, and I thought I had seen it all. I was wrong. It was a funeral for a man named Richard Holloway. Died alone in a fire. No family came. The casket was closed, and the priest muttered a blessing quickly before leaving. I stayed behind to fill the grave. The first shovelful of dirt fell into the coffin with a dull thud, then another, and another. That's when I heard it, a soft, scraping sound. From beneath the lid, I froze. The sound became a knock. Once, twice, louder, frantic. "Help me." A voice rasped. It wasn't Richard's. I knew the man was dead, burned beyond recognition, yet the voice, it sounded like someone I had buried long ago. I stepped back, my lantern flickering. The fog thickened. Shadows moved where there should have been none. The crows that had perched silently on the fence took flight, their cries shrill and unnatural. Then I saw her, a woman in black, standing at the edge of the grave. Her veil hid her face, but I felt her stare, piercing through the fog. She spoke, her voice like a knife dragging across stone. "You shouldn't be here. He's not ready." I didn't answer. My stomach turned. The coffin lid lifted slightly, creaking, and from inside, hands, pale, twisted, clawed, bursting through the soil, scratching at the air, desperate. I stumbled back. Lantern dropped. The light went out. Darkness swallowed me. Then I heard the digging. Fast. Everywhere. Around me. Under me. From the graves I had filled over the years, hands reaching, crawling, dragging themselves up from the soil. Faces emerged from the dirt, some familiar, some not, but all screaming silently, eyes hollow and black. The woman in black moved closer, her feet floating just above the ground. Around her, the dead rose in a wave, reaching for me, whispering my name in voices layered and overlapping. "Jonah, Jonah, Jonah." I ran, but the ground twisted beneath me, graves opening and closing like jaws. Coffins ripped themselves apart from the inside, skeletons leaning out, mouths impossibly wide, silent screams etched on their faces. I tripped and fell into mud, cold, wet, suffocating mud that seemed alive. Fingers clawed at my clothes, my arms, my legs, hands I recognized. People I had buried. They dragged me down, whispering, pleading, laughing. Then I heard it, my own voice, coming from beneath me, calling my name. "Dig me up, dig me up." The lantern flickered back to life. Lightning illuminated hundreds of graves, all open, all empty. From each rose a shadow, reaching, crawling, waiting for me. And the woman in black was there at the center, smiling. "You dig for them," she said, "and now they dig for you." I screamed, and the ground swallowed me. Dirt rained down, mud and hands and whispers. My own body clawed at the earth from inside, pulling, pushing, screaming. Darkness, silence. I woke hours later on the cemetery path. Mud on my clothes, boots torn, coffin gone. The fog hung low, thick, alive. The whispers never stopped. At night I hear them under the floorboards, in the walls, behind doors, always digging, always calling my name. Sometimes, when I close my eyes, I see her floating above the graves, lantern in hand, smiling. Behind her, the dead crawl from their soil, reaching, pulling, dragging. And I know that one day, they will drag me into the earth for good. Cemeteries aren't for the dead, they're for the living who forget to respect the soil. And I am learning that the hard way. The digging never stops. I've been a gravedigger for longer than I care to admit, 23 years. I've buried the lonely, the forgotten, the hated, and the unknown. Most people think it's a quiet job, that the dead lie still, that once someone's in the coffin, they're gone forever. They're wrong. Dead people are patient, they wait, they watch, they whisper, and some nights they reach. It was a fog-heavy November night, the kind of fog that creeps into your lungs and feels like cold hands wrapping around your heart. I had one more grave to fill, a man named Charles Merrick, no family, died alone in a small apartment. The funeral was short. A priest muttered a blessing, a few neighbors nodded somberly, and then it was just me and the earth. I started digging. The first shovelful of soil was normal, thick, wet, dark, but then something changed. The fog grew heavier, pressing against my chest. The trees in the cemetery twisted in ways that were impossible. Their roots writhed like snakes, and then I heard Ita whisper, "Jonah." I froze. My hands tightened around the shovel. I'd been digging for years. I knew every sound of earth, of wood, of dying wood groaning as coffins settled. This wasn't that. It was a voice, clear, human, and calling my name, Jonah. I spun around. Nothing, just fog. Crows perched silently on tombstones. and the dim light of my lantern cutting a shaky circle in the darkness. I told myself it was the wind. Ghosts of the dead are only stories, right? But then came the second whisper, "Help me." It was soft, trembling, and yet somehow familiar. I realized, with a cold dread, that it sounded like a child. My heart thumped, my stomach twisted. There was no child here. This was the grave of a man who died alone. I leaned over the hole, lantern shaking, and peered inside. At first I saw nothing, then a hand, pale clawed, scratched at the inside of the coffin lid. I stumbled backward. My boots slipped in mud. Lantern toppled. The light went out. Darkness pressed against my eyes, my skin, my lungs, and then, above me, a laugh, high-pitched, childlike, wrong. I turned toward it. She was there, a woman in black, standing on the edge of the next grave. Her veil hung in tatters. Her face was pale, almost gray, but her eyes, they weren't eyes, just black holes. I could feel her stare without seeing it, like a weight pressing into my chest. "You shouldn't be here," she said. Her voice was slow, deliberate, and it slid through my skull like ice. "He's not ready yet, and neither are you." I stumbled back. Another shovelful of dirt hit the coffin with a thunk. The lid rattled. Something moved beneath it. Another hand emerged. Not Charles's, something mine. Pale, twisted, coated in mud. I blinked. My lantern flickered back on. My hand had looked just like the one rising from the coffin. I screamed. I turned to run. The fog swallowed me. Tombstones bent as I passed, their inscriptions warping into words I couldn't read, their roots curling toward me. Every grave I had dug in my life seemed to shift, the earth pulsing beneath me. From some graves came whispers, others exhaled cold, fetid breath. Then the digging started, everywhere, above, below, all around me. My ears were filled with the sound of soil being scraped, hands clawing, bones creaking, and the whispers multiplied. Hundreds of voices, overlapping, each calling my name, begging, laughing, crying, screaming. I ran to the chapel. The doors locked themselves before I could reach them. I pounded, screamed. Nothing. Shadows stretched across the walls. Figures emerged from the corners, men, women, children I had buried. Their faces twisted in silent agony, mouths open impossibly wide. Their eyes, empty, black holes, followed me wherever I turned. The woman in black appeared inside the chapel, floating just above the floor. Around her, the dead rose from the floorboards themselves, their hands reaching, mouths opening to whisper my name in chorus. "Every digger takes a turn," she said. "Every digger ends here." The chapel trembled, coffins broke open, skeletons leaned out, some with rotting flesh still clinging, some with only bone, all moving, all whispering. They surrounded me. I backed into a corner. My lantern fell. Darkness, silence. Then I heard the heartbeat, slow at first, then faster, louder, my own or something else, something massive, pulsing through the earth beneath me. I felt the ground shift, soil moved like water. The coffins I had buried over the years, the ones I thought were done, began to rise. Lids cracked, boards splintered, and hands reached out, clawing. I tried to run. The floor turned to mud beneath my boots. Roots erupted from the ground, wrapping around my ankles, dragging me down. I screamed, kicking, clawing at anything I could reach. Hands emerged from the soil, grabbing my arms, my chest, my face. I felt them push me into the earth. I struggled, screamed, my lungs burned. Then came the whispers again. Hundreds, maybe thousands. "Dig, dig." My own voice joined them, echoing from inside my skull, screaming from beneath the ground, begging, pleading. I blacked out. When I came to, I was lying on the edge of the cemetery. Mud coated my clothes, my boots torn. The coffin was gone. The grave smoothed over. The fog hung heavy. I should have been safe, but I wasn't. I tried to leave town, drove 4 hours, listened to the road, silence, and then, scratching, wet, dragging, coming from the trunk, the floor, the back seat. I stopped the car, heart racing. Nothing there, but I could hear it inside the car, inside my head. That night I dreamed of her, the woman in black, standing over me, lantern in hand. Behind her, all the dead I had buried, crawling out of graves, rising from their coffins, staring at me, whispering, laughing, screaming. She reached out. The earth opened. I fell into a coffin. Dirt rained down. The whispers merged into one sound. My own voice calling my name. I woke, sweating. Mud on the floor of my room, my lantern on, burning softly. I hadn't brought it with me. The digging never stopped. I hear it through the floorboards, under the bed, inside the walls. Whispers, calls, scratching. I see shadows moving where there should be none. and every night, I dream of her smiling, floating, waiting, watching. I tried to tell people, cops, neighbors, friends. They laughed, said I was imagining it. I wasn't. They don't understand. You don't understand. Every gravedigger I've met has their story. Tales of coffins moving, whispers in the fog, shadows walking during funerals. I thought they were stories. I thought I was the exception. I wasn't. The dead remember. They never forget, and they wait for their turn. Sometimes, I wake in the middle of the night to find new footprints on the floor, bare, small, leading toward my bed. And when I turn, nothing, except the whispering, my name. Last week I found something worse. The soil in my garden had shifted. A small mound of dirt, and in it, a coffin. My name carved into the lid. Fresh, wet, waiting. I haven't slept properly since. I can feel them digging. Always digging beneath me, behind me, around me. The voices grow louder. They layer and twist into my own thoughts, my own fears. Sometimes I hear my own laughter, but it isn't mine. Sometimes I see my own face in the reflection of a dark window, but twisted, pale, eyes hollow. Cemeteries are not for the dead. They are for the living, for the curious, for the guilty. And I am learning that the hard way. The digging is constant now. At night, under my floor, through the walls, in the garden, in my dreams, I hear the shovels, the nails, the splintering wood, the whispers, hundreds of them, thousands of them. They are calling, pulling, waiting, and soon, I know they will take me. They always do. I hear the dirt shift outside my window tonight, wet, heavy, smelling of rot and rain. I dare not look. I know what I'll see. Fingers, hands, pale and desperate, clawing, and behind them, the woman in black, smiling, lantern in hand, watching, waiting. The last thing I will see will be the earth opening to take me in. The digging never ends, and neither will they. Do you hear that? The soil shifting beneath your feet. The whispers call your name, soft at first, then louder. The shadows in the cemetery don't just watch, they wait. Would you dare step closer, knowing they remember every soul that's ever walked here? One wrong move, and the digging begins. For you, are you brave enough to answer their call?